Hello, my name's Sri Sullivan and this is my walkthrough for the art task for the Mastered Bootcamp. Okay. First of all, after reading the brief, I decided to collect some reference photos. I went on Pinterest and found some images that I liked. I was looking at trinket boxes and ornate decorative bottles. And after making a mood board of these images, I made a rough sketch, and I decided to do a combination of a jewelry trinket, decorative trinket box but also combination with a glass bottle to have transparent aspects. After I had a rough idea sketched out, I went into Blender and started modelling the main shape of the container. My idea was to have petals around the lid that you had to unlock, and the petals would open. So I started modelling the shape out of a cube using some loop cuts. I made the general shape of the body of the container. I extruded some bits out. After getting a general sort of shape that I was happy with, I separated the mesh to create a lid, and then I added a solidify modifier on both components. I then started modelling a heart shape to add on to the handle. I wanted this bit to be where the lock mechanism would happen, so there would be a keyhole. I created the heart shape by using a UV sphere that I cut in half, and then added a mirror modifier, and then moved the geometry around with the proportional editing tool. Then once I was happy with the heart shape, I parented it to the lid. Then I went on to model the petals. I used plane and then added some loop cuts and edited that until I was happy with the petal shape. I then went and added a solidifier modifier onto the petal, and also a subdivision surface modifier. I then go on to add use an array modifier to get the petals perfectly placed around the container. Then I went on to cut a keyhole shape out of the heart handle. I used a Boolean modifier to do this. I also realised later on that I actually cut out a complete shape of a key instead of just a keyhole shape, which I then go on to fix later on. I went on to try and make a sort of emblem type thing, because I wasn't really happy with the idea of like a key hole. I kind of wanted to a bit more of like a puzzle aspect, where you had to find an emblem and put it onto the container to open, kind of like the puzzles in, say, Resident Evil. But so I went into Illustrator and created a vector of a butterfly that I was trying to use with a Boolean modifier to create a sort of cutout of that shape. But I struggled with this and I didn't actually end up using it. I eventually just went on to model a butterfly emblem that was just there for decoration instead of like one that you fit into the model. And this is where I realised that I had a key shape instead of a keyhole shape, and which I just go on to fix now. I then went on to mark the seams of the mesh to get it ready to UV unwrap the mesh to texture it. I normally use the shader editor in Blender, but I decided to use Substance Painter for this project. So I UV unwrapped the mesh and then packed the UV for it to be imported into Substance Painter. I added individual materials onto each separate bit of the mesh to create the layers in the Substance Painter. I didn't actually get much screen recording of me using Substance Painter. This was actually my first time using Substance Painter. It was definitely a bit of a learning curve for me. I used some the ready-made like Spark shaded smart textures in Substance Painter. But once I brought the textures back into Blender, they didn't quite work properly. I'm not really sure what went wrong. I edited the nodes in the shader editor a bit to make them look a bit better, but I'm not really sure what went wrong with that. Like one of the main things that I've applied to do this bootcamp for is to improve on like having a better workflow in between softwares, because I feel like that's where a lot of my problems arise from, is not having the proper workflow to work in between softwares, and like optimizing my workflow to so that I don't have issues later on with the UVs and the mesh and textures and everything. I then went on to set up a 3-point lighting system in Blender to render out in cycles. I also created like a backdrop so the light would bounce off of that and look good, I hope. And that's everything that I did to create this 3D container.